For me, I came from a slightly different, probably, situation there where I went through that process during homeschooling and having to, do reports at the end of the year and going through the process of feeling like I have to have these things to show that I've progressed and gone here. I think my family let go a little more uh, when I came here, and they took the deep breath and had faith in what this place could be and do for me. There was the occasional, well, what have you been doing? What are you taking classes? And I took the occasional class. My education had always been self-driven in that I had interests and I would follow them. Unfortunately for me, occasionally end up in arguments because most of my interests I sort of followed secretly and bookishly, and it wasn't necessarily taking a class here or being involved in some group that was learning something. It was in those quiet moments in the morning when I got here first, and I had a couple hours to sit and poke through the library and decide I was going to pick up a book on chaos theory and read through it until I got to the point where the math was too much, and then realized maybe I should brush up on my math a little more. Uh, I always saw, there are all the different approaches of people asking their children, and getting involved, and occasionally people crossing the lines. I believe when I was here, we had a couple parents who caused trouble, getting very involved in trying to push people who weren't even their own kids to do more educational projects, and I think they may have missed the point that this is an alternative education, and the alternative is self-driven, and it's going to be self-driven, and one of the worst things you can do is push too hard, because if you're going to become who you're going to become, and if you are going to follow the things that are going to lead you to being happy, you have to take a step back and redefine success. I feel like that could be a tagline for the school, is redefining success. Fairhaven School is redefining success, because I don't think it has to be getting the best job, making the most money, having the white picket fence, and maybe it is, and if that's what it is for you, then I applaud that. That's something that is completely admirable, but it's not everyone's dream. I've never defined my success by some academic standard or the things that people expected me to know. I defined it by my passions and the things I loved.
I can't say that for me, that's a totally alien question. I guess I was lucky to have two parents who did not operate from that place. They made a choice before they had children that they were not going to operate from that place because of the way that they were raised, and they stuck to it. And I've had conversations with them since where they never said, this was a difficult thing for us. They worried like any parent did in some way or another. They never poked, they never prodded in a way that made me feel uncomfortable or attacked in any regard. I think one thing about being here is, there's still that question of, well, when you grow up, adults look at kids and they say, when you grow up, you can do this. When you grow up, you can be that or this. And when you say something like that to a child, you're forgetting that, it's like using that word when, it's almost taking the power out of it. So why not now? It's like, what's the focus now? What are you focused on now? Brett, you're talking about pursuing your passions, sitting down in the morning and taking the time to look over that book and get to the point where you couldn't take the math any farther, and you said, well, I better bone up on some, algebra 2 or geometry and whatever the case may be. So it's almost like that, just that unfolding, and the need that parents might have is going to be a part of that unfolding. It will be, I think, for a lot of people. Again, it wasn't for me. And in some ways, that actually might have been a bad thing. Like, it would have been great to have my mom or dad say, Ben, I see that you like playing the piano. Maybe you want to do something more with it. Because at 11 or 12 years old, I didn't have the thought I could do something with this. It was just kind of like, oh, it's here. All right. You know? That's how I interpret it now.
My family was kind of, my parents at least, were uniquely disengaged kind of from the whole process. They left me to my own devices, which I was very, very grateful for, and I still am. I think it would have been much more detrimental for everyone involved if they'd put any pressure on me. But I mean, I do kind of wish they'd gotten more involved in the social aspects of the rest of the community, and they'd gotten to meet more parents. I think that would have been really healthy for them emotionally. But I faced no pressure, and I'm very grateful that I did. I wish I had some advice for how to do that. I wish I had. You just have to know your parents' psychology, and you have to know what's meaningful to them and what they think a meaningful life for you would look like, and speak to them about it and see where you can come down on shared experiences or shared goals, and just say they had the faith and they had the trust to put you here, to let you come here. They have to have the faith and the trust in you that you're going to follow the path the way you need to do for yourself.
I realized in what I had said before, I didn't address, you were asking about sort of the pressures to do things. I was lucky enough to have parents who I feel that I almost neglected to do the flip side of that. I didn't feel pressure to do specific classes or to take math or to take writing or something like that, or to follow, a traditional academic sort of education or things. But there was always a pressure and a pressing to do the things I was passionate about. If I talked about an interest, if I wanted to do something, if I had something I felt passionately about, there was an incredible amount of pressure to do something with that, to use my time here to follow those interests and things and be those things and
Do you mean self-imposed pressure or?
Both. I think I felt a lot of pressure from my parents that if I had an interest, I definitely had to follow that. I had to get involved in that and do that, and occasionally to detriment. Every so often there'd be arguments of, okay, I said I was interested in that, but that was months ago, and I'm a teenager. So that there was occasionally a pressure, but I think for me it was more pressure from them, from a good place, to see me succeed at the things I was passionate about.
My personality and who I am comes in large part from my family. I am deeply, deeply grateful and thankful to my parents and my grandparents, my entire line, for being the poets and the writers that they are. I don't know if that writes, but I'm just thankful for that. Coming to Fairhaven certainly didn't hurt. This is a place with a lot of very articulate families and experiences, and left to the time that we have to speak. You spend a lot of time talking, you learn how to craft words well.
I attribute a fair amount of my ability to articulate myself to this place, definitely, a majority of it. I was always, a thoughtful kid, a deep thinker, intellectual type, but I didn't know how to take all these thoughts and these feelings and communicate. And just before I came to this school, I ended up being signed up for, I think it's St. John's did it, the Touchstones courses that they were doing at Maryland Hall, which was essentially a philosophy group. I don't recall initially wanting to go because as I said before, did not do social situations well at the time. But I recall deeply enjoying those sort of debates and philosophical discussions, and being so sad when the course ended. And in coming here, realizing that you didn't need that structure of some class to go to have that discussion and that debate, and realizing I'm not sure if it's always been that way in this school, or if it is still that way now that I've been gone for so long. But I know in the time that I spent at this school, it was a daily event. It was something that happened every day, constantly. There, you would walk into a room and find yourself wrapped up in the middle of some intense discussion on incredibly deep topics: philosophy, religion, politics. Though generally around here, I feel like it was usually the politics of the school and not the politics of the greater world necessarily, until maybe my last year, or depending on the timeline. I definitely attribute most of my ability to articulate and interact with other people to this school and my experiences here.